Welcome to this edition of the Weekly Dose. Challenge your perspective. This is Patrick Dare from Washington, D.C. The past 1 week since March 4th, the day of the election in Kenya, it has been a roller coaster. It has been a roller coaster for Kenyans, waiting patiently for who the next president of Kenya would be. While the IEBC tackles their problem of counting and recounting and the problems with the electronic machines, the Kenyans have been patient. And finally, this Saturday, we knew the answer. It was President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta. The people have spoken. However we like it or not, the people have spoken. It's their choice. Now we must remember one thing though, and I'm going to quote this from Franklin D. Roosevelt. Let us not forget that government is ourselves and not an alien power over us. The ultimate ruler of our democracy are not a president and senators and congressmen, in this case parliamentarians, and government officials, but the voters of this country. That's where the power lies. And that's where the power has been decided. And people must seize that power. Because as we know, this election has been contentious. In fact, the code people have declared that they're going to court. They're going to ask the Supreme Court to decide whether this election was done fairly or not. In their books, they think it was unfair. And there's probably reason to think so when you take all the problems that has occurred. The credibility of the process is in question. And is democracy safe in the long run when there is credibility issues? Now, you may agree or disagree with the IEBC, with Code Alliance. You may disagree on how things were done. But as I've said in this program before, I am more concerned with the soul of the country. We have come at a crossroad where we have to ask ourselves the question of what is in for Kenya? What is democracy place in Kenya? I'm going to ask or put it to the people of Kenya, all the electorate, that we must accept what the results are. And you have shown the patience to do so. It's been very peaceful. Now, for the code people, you fought a good war. You fought in a democratic process. Let it be so. For Raila Odinga, your place in history will be forever be marked. If there's one single individual in my books that has fought for democracy in Kenya, is Raila Amolo Odinga. He has brought a democratic space where there can be a Code Alliance, there can be a Jubilee Alliance, the URP, the TNA, the UDF, and all the parties, and that presidential candidates can sit down or whatever, stand up and debate each other publicly. And that anybody wishing to stand for the presidency can do so without intimidation. That is your legacy. Think of Martin Luther King. Think of J.M. Karaoke. Think of the many, many freedom fighters who fought for democracy but never became presidents. Their space in history is reserved. And your space, Mr. Raila, is reserved. Kenyans will remember you for the democracy that you brought them, for taking them out of the jaws of KANU and the one-party state. You have fought a good war. You have been jailed. You have suffered personally and family-wise. But I think it is time to move on and let Kenya heal. We may question, and rightly so, why Kenyans voted the way they voted, with the ICC looming over these two gentlemen. But I think the bigger question is, can this country heal? Can this country heal from the many atrocities and the many issues of tribalism? And this is where I think Uhuru comes in. I've said before that none of those presidential candidates were standing to be the president of their individual tribes. Uhuru, you must remember that you are not the president of the Kikuyus. And Mr. William Ruto, you must remember that you are not the vice president of the Kalenjins. Those are simply your base voters. And there's nothing wrong with the Kalenjins voting in total for Uhuru and Ruto. There's nothing wrong about Kikuyus voting for Uhuru and Ruto. That is, in any election, you have to have a strong base, your stronghold. One might say it's tribalism. And maybe so. But Uhuru and Mr. William Ruto, you must take the stand that you are the president and you are the leaders of all Kenyans. Don't make it be as in the past, where certain sections of government, meetings can be held in one vernacular language. Take Kenya forward one more step. And that will be the process of democracy. Democracy is hard. It is a hard thing. But you must advance the very principles of democracy and freedom. And so, maybe one day, the stronghold of any one individual will not be their tribe. It will be a stronghold of ideas. That a Turkana can stand up and have ideas and be elected, be voted in by a Kikuyu, by a Luo, by a Luya. That a Giriama can stand and be elected by all other tribes. That a Pokot can stand and not fear that they're the minority. That anybody in Kenya, be it from the Kikuyu again or from the Luo, that they can stand and say that Kenya has advanced one more step where tribalism is not the deciding factor of who becomes the president. And Uhuru, you have that mantle. And Mr. Ruto, you have that mantle to advance Kenya one more step. One more step towards democracy. You must bring Kenyans together in this very trying time. And even as you face the ICC, face it with bravery. If you're innocent and proven so, this process, Kenyans will be proud. But what we must not do as Kenyans is raise our hands against another Kenyan just because some other area lost. We are all Kenyans first. As I've said in other parts of this program, we are all Kenyans first, and that is what must be saved. Kenyan and Kenya can survive an individual. Kenya cannot survive anarchy. And as we go forward, may God bless Kenya. May we all be Kenyans first and embrace each other and develop each other and say, brother, You voted, I voted, and this is what the results are. And if I was to advise Mr. Raila, as I said earlier, if I would have advised Uhuru to stand down, I take this opportunity to say that if I was to advise Raila right now, I would say, stand down. I know the law is there and the courts can decide, but you have your place in history. Let history judge your contribution to this great country of Kenya. Thank you. This is Patrick Dare, bringing you your weekly dose and challenging your perspective.